lifestyle changes. We've talked about dietary changes. We've talked about exercise affecting cancer remission or prevention of cancer. What about light therapy? You talk about that in your book.
Yes, light therapy we call it therapy, but it's actually the most natural thing. If you stayed in Africa or in other countries that are close to the equator, you would find that people spend most of their days outside. So they wouldn't call it therapy. Now
No,
we call it therapy because we are lacking the exposure.
We're inside all the time.
We are inside all the time. And being inside, incidentally, is one of the leading causes of low vitamin D. And you will find there are studies after studies popping out now that people who live indoors mostly, they have the highest rates of skin cancers, for example. Now, why is that? Because they are shielded from the sun, and we have been told that the sun is causing cancer. But this has never been proved.
It has not?
No. There is no proof that the sun itself, by itself, causes cancer.
That's theoretical? That's just theoretical?
It is. It is made up. Because you may have people who have cancer, but it's not because of the sun. They found that it is the chemicals that people have accumulated and saturated their connective tissue with, which is the tissue right under the skin. Trans fatty acids that start moving, making their way through into the skin. Once you have trans fatty acids, that is the fatty acids that are in canola oil, for example, which is a genetically modified oil. So extremely damaging oil. It's now in all restaurants. It's just cheap oil.
Sure it is. Vegetable oils. Right?
Yeah. But it's the way it's processed, and it doesn't exist in nature. So it is a genetic product. Canola oil, Canada oil. It's made in Canada. Con oil. It's derived from rapeseed. Rapeseed oil is very toxic, so they have to detoxify it and heat it, and then it creates the trans fatty acids. So once they are getting into the cell membranes, they start, and then the sun, the UVA is getting to them. Then you have a destruction, or destruction and irritation that occurs. The body will try to eliminate those poisons and toxins through the skin, and that can damage the skin. When you're exposed to the sun, it brings it faster through the skin, which is a healing. You would want that because you want to get it out. You don't want to keep it and then creating tumors all over the body. So the sun is not a cause of cancer, but the sun is helping you to produce vitamin D, and vitamin D is the principal steroid hormone that is controlling the immune system and the circulation, cardiovascular functions. Heart is dependent on vitamin D. The brain is totally dependent on vitamin D. The liver is dependent on vitamin D. There is not a single cell that doesn't depend on its livelihood, on its metabolism on vitamin D. And when you are sitting indoors and the glass that allows the light to come through, it will filter out UVB. UVB is responsible for producing vitamin D in the body. UVA destroys vitamin D in the body. And if you were out in nature, like an African woman who walks with the baby in the field, the baby gets the vitamin D, the mother gets the vitamin D, they don't ever overdose on vitamin D. If you make too much vitamin D, it would kill you.
Okay.
The liver would be poisoned and you would die.
But that doesn't happen.
And it doesn't happen when you are in the sun because UVA makes sure that you only have the perfect level of vitamin D. It will always destroy the excess that you produce. Even if you are in the sun for 8 hours a day, you will only have the normal right levels. If you're indoors, UVA comes in, destroys the vitamin D, and you become deficient because UVB is filtered out, doesn't come in, and you only make vitamin D from UVB.
Okay.
So that's why people who drive in cars most of the time, let's say they go from their house into the car and they drive all day and they come back home, they will become vitamin D deficient.
And if you are vitamin D deficient, then you are at risk for developing cancer.
Anything.
Anything, any disease.
But it depends on where the contamination the congestion has arisen most.
Okay.
If it is in your throat, you can get throat cancer. If it's in your eyes, you get eye cancer. If it's in your brain, you get brain cancer. If it's in your intestine and the colon, you get colon cancer. Wherever the congestion is more,
right.
and that is again the diet, when you sleep, all those different kinds of things that influence how well you eliminate waste products from your body. That will then determine where you would get your cancer.
But without vitamin D, we're at risk.
Absolutely.
Which we get from the sunlight.
From the sun. And there are many people say, well, take supplements. Nature didn't put vitamin D in human breast milk. Why? Because nature wanted to make sure it's not running through the digestive tract. It wants to make sure that you only produce it in response to sunlight by exposing the baby to the sun. So nature doesn't make mistakes. So now we are supplementing it. It will help. There are lots of studies to show it is quite useful, but you don't quite know what the implications are down the road. So I prefer to say, well, get vitamin D through sun exposure, or in the winter if you're in a northern state, by exposure to UV light from vitamin D lamps, UV lamps, which I grew up in Germany, and we used to have those.
Oh, you did?
It was just standard. Almost every household had them, because they knew vitamin D protects you against tuberculosis, for example. And in the 1920s, most of the diseases were treated with sunlight.
They were.
So sunlight therapy. Tuberculosis, people were taken up into the Swiss Alpine mountains and stripped of their clothes, exposed to the sun, and after a couple of days they were healed. Now we find there's a new study coming out, and I spoke about that in my sunlight book. But it is the UV radiation that is now considered the only chance for the hospitals to be free of antibiotic-resistant organisms, which are now a leading cause of the infections that cannot be treated anymore with antibiotics. UV light does it. It doesn't matter what bacteria they are. These germs, they don't stand a chance against UV C. That's the other UVC radiation.